Hello everyone, I am Rod and I am the game design instructor for the Academy of Entertainment Arts over at Dixie Hollins High School. If you are one of my students, it's Mr. Flowers to you, and welcome to this video tutorial. Alright, good evening everyone. Hopefully you're seeing everything pretty well. I've updated my recording software, so hopefully everything's working fine. Just double check, make sure my mic's on. It is, yay! I did a complete record of this while the mic was off, and yay me. And then I did another one where it actually ended up stopping halfway through. So this is what we're working toward. We have a wonderful object here. This is our vase that we're working on, and we're going to be doing some UVs. So you can see my UVs here in this UV panel. They're nice and pretty and set because I've done the video like 3 times. But it's okay, because I will show you how to get here and make this pretty full. Alright, so now that we have a goal to work towards, we'll go back in object mode, make sure I'm there. If you haven't already downloaded the checker map that is in the Dropbox, go ahead and download that, and we're going to assign it. Make sure you click on Lambert. When you do, you should get your material attributes. If your material attributes don't pop up, you can always right-click on your vase and go down to material attributes, and they should pop up. Once they do, change the name here from Lambert to checker map. That way you can have it. Whenever you're working in 3D and you want to do UVs, you're going to have a checker map. Some people make their own. Maya actually has one built in. A few other engines have them, or modeling applications have them built in. Unreal Engine 4 has one built in. I prefer to make my own. Some of the ones that come with the programs aren't always as good. So I made this one for you in Photoshop. Down here under color, where I have this little arrow, it's usually a checker. Just kind of click the checker and it'll bring you to the file menu. Select file from the file menu and then open the manila folder and then navigate to where we have the checker map stored on your desktop. Once you do that, I'm going to show you how to get this nice even display. You'll probably have some pretty fat looking checkers. It's okay. Right here where it says File 2, go over to the little right area where it says Place 2D Texture, and then it's going to give you its properties. If we scroll down, we have Repeat UNV. By default, it's set to 1, and it should look like this. But it's hard to do any real mapping to that, so we're going to set this. You can give it any value you want. I'm just going to do 5 by 5. That way we get a nice clean checker distribution across our model. By default, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to show you what it looks like. So go up to UV, and we're going to do a cylindrical projection. You want to project this based on the kind of object this is. This is mostly a cylinder, and there are a few areas that we could do a different type of projection, but you wouldn't do a sphere for this typically. You could do it all in planar maps. I don't like doing it that way. The cylindrical mapping usually does this pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and hit cylindrical. And by default, you'll see if I open up my UV tab, this is what it gives you. Okay? And it looks like something we could use. The way that this is mapped out, you can see a lot of this is pretty clean and nice. But here, along the handle, is all distorted. And then up here on the top of the vase, there's this like zebra stripe pattern kind of going on. And this we can't really use. There's too much distortion. So what we have to do is kind of clean this up. Before I go into that, I just want to show you real quick about how to use this handle. So when you first do your cylindrical projection, you'll get this little handle. If you click on these little nodes here and this little T-bar, you'll get these little handles. You can slide this thing back and forth and change how the UVs are projected. See how that and how it's updating in the UV window. And you can adjust all of those kind of this way or that way, so on and so forth. You can adjust the height, and you should be able to adjust the scale. But we're not. We're going to end up leaving it at default. So I'm going to hit UV and go back and hit cylindrical. That way it'll reset. Just keep in mind that that will reset it every time. So if you at some point mess up and you want to go back to the beginning, you can hit that and reset it. Also, if you accidentally hit it, it will reset it. So you want to make sure that whenever you click this again, that your intentions are to reset your UVs. Okay. So with this as it is, go back and hit 6 on the keyboard, just so you can kind of see. And we'll go over why this is a bad projection. Let's say we did this and out of the gate it was pretty. The reason we wouldn't be able to use it has to do with a lot of these UVs overlapping. And I'm going to kind of come over here and just show you. If I hover my mouse over this particular group, you can see this guy's highlighting. And even on the model, you can kind of see where it's showing up. Where are you? See it? Kind of flickering. And you can see this line cutting through. And over here, this kind of cuts through these. Whenever you're doing UV mapping, you don't want to have anything overlapping. There's this kind of bending and folding over and underneath, and this creates all sorts of distortion and problems that you can see in the model here, but it creates other issues as well. When you load this into a game engine and you have UVs overlapping, and a lot of modelers will do this, they'll try to conserve UV space by stacking UVs on top of each other. Like if it's a pair of hands, they'll stack hands on top of hands. That way they're the same and they're just mirrored. But you don't want to do that. You don't want to stack like legs on top of legs and all that stuff. Stacking UVs is awful, especially for game engines when it comes to texture mapping, displacement maps that have to use that UV location, and baking on shadows. So in Unreal, for example, if you wanted to do a shadow map and kind of bake on your shadows to the texture, what it does, it takes your UV layout and then it creates the shadow, and kind of based on the light and the level, it will create a shadow map based on those UVs. If there's overlapping UVs, your shadows won't bake properly. If you are trying to do like a distortion map or a displacement map, that probably won't displace correctly. And if you're doing what's called an LOD, or a level of detail, where your character gets closer or further away from an object, you see more or less detail. Those LODs won't configure properly if your UV shells are not spaced correctly. So, all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this up into different UV shells, and each shell will have its own kind of position on here, and we'll end up sewing it together and making it pretty. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit 5 on the keyboard so that I can get rid of the checker map. Right click, go to object mode, and click on my guy again just so I can get rid of that handle, the cylindrical handle thing. And I'm going to come back here, and as we're making this, and I'll put up 6 just one more time so you can see. When we're doing UVs, you want to make sure that you're keeping the same amount of UV space or distribution across all of your little squares. So like on here, each one of these UV blocks or sections will distribute the same amount of texture. Why that's important is you don't want to have stretching. Like right here, this is really big, where these are really small, and then these ones down here are kind of just right. We're going to have to go through and kind of even this all out. And as we go through, you're going to create seams. So the placement of your seams is going to be important. You don't want anybody to kind of see what's going on. So we're going to try to hide our seams as best as possible. What I'm doing is I'm creating a natural seam. I'm creating one here on the handle. I'm going to create one more down here on this part of the handle. And all I'm doing is holding Shift and clicking on the edge. Make sure you're in edge mode. Hopefully you went there intuitively without having me to say it. But with that highlighted, I'm going to go up in here in our UV tab under polygons and then cut UV edges. And what that'll do is it'll separate these shells. So if I double click on that poly group or this particular UV group, and hit W on the keyboard and just move it off. And then I'm going to double click on this one and kind of move that one off. And what I'm going to do from here is I'm going to allow Maya to unfold these and try to give it its best guess without having anything overlap. So I'm going to click this little guy right here. It looks like a little cross sideways with a little X on it. If you hover over, it says unfold selection, and I will hit it, and this will be Maya's best guess at the unfold. And if we hit 6, we will see that it's a lot cleaner than it was a few seconds ago. There's still some stretching going on, but the size of each UV section, or each one of our squares of our checker, is about the same across the entire model, which is pretty good. We have some spots here we can clean up, and up here on the top of the vase you can see where it's kind of getting squished together, and we'll end up fixing that. First part is I want to grab these little arms. So double click to grab the shell. I'm going to hold shift, double click on this one, grab that shell, and I'm going to pull this off. Now if you don't see your texture here on your UV grid, you have these two little picture boxes right here. The first one turns the texture on so you can see it in the display. The other one changes how bright or how dark it gets. Some of you probably like it bright. That kind of drives me nuts. And the checker pattern itself is actually kind of dizzying, so I'm going to turn that off altogether so I don't have to stare at it. Oh, God, it hurts my eyes. I've been looking at this little way too long. But it is good for making sure everything moves smoothly, so I'm going to keep it on in that window for the moment. I'm going to move this shell over here. And what I'm going to do is, actually I'm going to hit 5 on the keyboard to kind of see over here. And what I'm going to do is I want to sew this together and make it so that there's only one seam sort of on the inside here. Kind of think of this as sort of like a soda can. And in the class, some of you did the soda can exercise where you had to make the soda can and kind of put the label on. If you think of this as this little piece here as like a soda can and you wrap a label around it, the part right in here is where the two pieces of the label kind of connect together. And then the clean piece that you're going to see that has like the label and all the text and stuff on it would be on this side so people can see it. And then the little nasty part where it connects together will be hidden under here. Another way of thinking of seams is to think of how seams work in your clothing. So the way like your pants kind of get sewn together along the inseam, or the way your sleeves kind of get sewn together along the underline. Those are good obvious places that you can put seams if you're working on like a character model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, go to edge mode. You can also go to edge mode by hitting F10. And I'm going to click on this edge. And what that'll do is inside my UV panel is it's going to highlight that edge. So I know this is the back side, and I want this back side edge to be connected. So I have that one selected. I hit Q to kind of get rid of my little widget there. I'm going to click, 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 and get these. And I'm going to come down, get this guy, and that's as far as I'm going to go for right now. And I'm going to go to polygons, come down to move and sew, and what that'll do is it'll attach these together. Now Maya has some issues with making guesses, so this is kind of folded together and kind of wonky. We're going to want to unfold that. So I'm going to go to UV, double click, and then up here is the unfold button, and I'm going to click that. And here is our unfold. And if I hit 6 on the keyboard, whoops, 6 on the keyboard, you can see that this is a lot nicer than it was before. It's pretty smooth. The size of the square here of the checker is about the size of the square here, so we have good distribution across these two sections. The only areas where there's some distortion is down here near the bottom where it's been split. So you can see the split right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew this piece together. So I'm going to zoom in, right click, go into edge mode, and I'm going to grab, hold shift, click, 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 and yeah, I'll get that one. Now I'm going to go up polygons, move and sew, and then go back into UVs, double click, select all of those, and then unfold it one more time. Okay. And that is much nicer. This is kind of clean on the edge here. These are kind of clean there. And then if I were to turn this, the only noticeable seam really is on the inside right here, and this is a part you probably won't see very often. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. Also, I want to keep the video under an hour. And UV mapping can take a good long time if you want to make everything perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and come over to the next piece. And this is the body. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this guy, hit 5 on the keyboard, so I can go into shaded mode. And actually, before I go into shaded mode, I'm going to show you the reason why I'm going to separate this. And it has to do with how these squares are kind of being squished up in the neck area. You kind of see this right there. What I want to do is I want to kind of get this to be its own shell. I'm going to unfold it, and then I'm going to re-sew it back on. And then for the top of this, I'm going to project this differently so we can get a much cleaner projection on the top. So if I hit 5 on the keyboard, F10, going to go around, click this edge, double click to get the whole loop, and then I'm going to come up here to this part, and I'm going to hold shift, click, and double click to get the whole loop around. Okay. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and do polygons, cut, UVs. I'm going to pull this off. And I'm actually going to do this thing as its own cylindrical projection. Let me see how it's lining up here real quick. Okay, so I'm going to go up to UV and cylinder. If you get an error, that just means you didn't have it selected as faces. So I'm going to double click that, make sure I'm in face mode, and then I'll do it again. And you can see that these are cleaner all the way around, which is nice. Even on the back of the head here, this is clean all the way around, but we don't have the same amount of texture space being used up. So for that, it looks like I got some messy ones up here. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and hit unfold. And we get this weird, oops, right click, grab these guys. And we get this weird like turkey neck looking thing. But you can see that our projection is much cleaner in here. And all the way around, it's cleaner until you get to about here where the back seam is, and there's some folding. But that's to be expected on the back seam. Okay, so there's that piece. And then I'm going to grab this piece, which is the top of the head here. And I'm going to right click, go to faces, just kind of select all. And I'm going to do a projection from a planar map. So I'm going to go planar, hit the little box, and then select Y because I want it to be up and down. Hit close. And it gives us this cool spiderweb looking thing. And you can see the projection up top is a lot cleaner, but there are some distorted areas on the sides. So what I have to do is I have to unfold this. So I'll hit unfold, right click, grab UVs, pull this one up, grab this one, pull this one over, and you can see, again, it's cleaner up top. It's still a little distorted down here, but we're going to fix those ones on the edge. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew it together. So I'm going to grab this one, and this is actually upside down. If you look under here, I'm going to go ahead and go into face mode so you can see if I grab these faces, down here at the bottom, it's actually these faces here at the nose. And if I grab these ones down at the neck, it's these ones here. So we want to flip this thing. So UVs, you could just rotate it and see what you get. Let's see, this side, make sure this is the correct side here. And it is. And then make sure this is the correct side, and it is. UVs, I'm going to move this over, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and sew these on. So F10. I'm going to click on this edge, and you can see this edge lining up. I'm going to grab these. And then I'm going to go polygons, move and sew. And we kind of get this Darth Vader looking mask. And you can see that these are kind of folded over. So I'm going to hit UVs, double click, unfold. And if we look, this is together much cleaner. Like these all kind of go together, all kind of go together. It's really smooth all the way around. And then right here along the seam, you can kind of see how the seam is disconnected. But that's not too bad. I can kind of live with that. If you want to make it more perfect, if you're more of a perfectionist than I am, I'm gonna move this over here. If you're more of a perfectionist than I am, you can always sew these. And if you really want to, you are welcome to. Let's see. I just want to see how to look if I do move and sew. Whoops. No UVs. So you can see how that actually caused an issue, because when we added those UVs in, it kind of stretched and caused some problems. So I'm going to hit Control Z and go back to the one that we had before. Oh, there we go. So I'm going to keep it this way, where it's kind of like a Darth Vader helmet. Then I'm going to go down to the body, double click, drag this up, and I'm going to sew these to the base of the neck here. Right click, edge mode, and I'm going to grab this edge. And you could double click and go through, but it might grab the entire thing, and I don't want to grab the whole body. I just want this loop here. So polygons, move and sew. And you can see right here that these line up together, and the spacing is a lot nicer than it was before. It's very consistent all the way through. There's a little bit of stretching here as we're getting kind of at the end. And if you wanted to be a perfectionist and kind of go through and fix some of this, you're more than welcome to. I want to keep the video under 40 minutes, which I might be close to 30 as it is. So all I'm going to do is one more unfold and a layout. So let's grab this. Let me hit unfold. That looks fine. Actually, I'm going to go back to one. And I'm just kind of jumping between just to see how it distributes. Because it's cleaner here, but it's a little squished there. I think I'll be happy with that though. Back up one. Yeah, okay. I'll leave it as this. And you kind of have to pick your battles where they are. You can be on this for hours and hours and hours, and I don't want to do that. So now that I have my two shells, I just want to make sure that in my 0 to 1 space that I'm not over the edges. And what I can do, actually I shouldn't be. I should be right there, which is fine. But what I'll do anyway is grab this, hit R on the keyboard, and I will just scale it down just a tad. That way I'm off of my edges here. That way when I'm starting the texture, I don't have to worry about being down at the edge of the screen and coming off the map. Okay, so this is the basic rundown on how to properly UV something. Again, we're not so concerned about how straight these are as we are, I mean, the straighter they are, the better, but your main goal is to make sure that the amount of texture density, or how big of a section is displayed, is equal throughout the entire thing. And to kind of give you an example, you don't have to follow this part, but I'll just show you. These UVs are closer together than these UVs, but if I make them bigger to kind of make them the same size as this guy, because there are more here, as I expand them, we actually end up getting a lot more texture space than is here. And if I shrink these down, we get a lot less texture space than is here. So you just want it to be consistent all the way through. Dink. Okay. And that should wrap it up for this video. Make sure that you save your work. And I shall see you guys on actually the next video I'm going to show you how to paint this. So before I disappear on that. Alright, so again, make sure you save your work, and I will see you next time.